I ain't gonna lie.
If you're just joining us here, was just arrested and taken into federal custody in New York tonight. Sources tell TMZ Homeland Security swooped into a Midtown hotel late Monday where Diddy was staying, and they arrested him.
Gene Deal, Sean Diddy Combs' former bodyguard, has sent shockwaves through the celebrity world with a warning that hit close to home. The object of his concern? None other than Diddy's own son, Christian Combs, who Deal claims may be in real danger. The reason? Christian's alleged involvement in leaking certain footage related to Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex, which has only added fuel to the fire surrounding Diddy's ongoing legal battles. This scandal, already teetering on the edge of implosion, now seems to have grown even more tangled as Christian's actions have seemingly dragged him into the center of a storm that threatens to tear apart not just his father's legacy, but potentially his own future as well.
I have information that he was arrested tonight at a Manhattan hotel. He is currently being processed. I heard from his attorney they are still maintaining his innocence. They said that in anticipation of these charges that Diddy relocated to New York.
For those not up to speed, Cassie Ventura was once Diddy's on and off girlfriend for over a decade. But ever since she came forward with explosive allegations against the music mogul, accusing him of years of physical and emotional mistreatment, the world has been watching closely. That was back in late 2023, and what followed was a whirlwind of lawsuits, settlements, and disturbing revelations that continue to make headlines. Cassie's lawsuit, filed under New York's Adult Survivors Act, was settled almost immediately after it dropped, but that didn't silence the chatter. If anything, it only amplified the rumors. And now, with new footage surfacing, footage that's reportedly tied directly to Christian Combs, the saga has taken yet another dark turn.
Listen, y'all, I understand that these girls are of age, but this is just disgusting to me. It feels very predatory to me. It feels very...
Gene Deal's warning to Christian isn't just some idle comment. Deal has been in the trenches. He worked for Diddy during the height of his fame, and he's seen things that most people wouldn't believe. He knows how deep the rabbit hole goes, and his concern for Christian seems genuine. Christian is playing a dangerous game, Deal reportedly said in a recent interview. There are people out there who don't want this footage to see the light of day. And if he's the one who leaked it, then he's made some powerful enemies. Coming from a man who was once Diddy's right hand in terms of security, Deal's words carry weight.
If that's part of the indictment, that's someone like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
But what exactly is this footage, and why is it so explosive? According to sources, the video in question shows an unsettling altercation between Diddy and Ventura back in 2016, an incident that Cassie detailed in her lawsuit. The footage was captured in the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel, and while it contains no audio, it paints a disturbing picture. In the clip, Cassie is seen walking toward an elevator when Diddy, wearing nothing but a towel, charges down the hall after her. What follows is a physical confrontation that ends with Diddy throwing Cassie to the ground and kicking her, before dragging her back toward their room.
Combs is seen shoving, kicking, and dragging his then-girlfriend down the hallway. And now he's posted an apology.
This footage, which had been buried for years, resurfaced earlier this year, and its release has only added fuel to the growing fire of allegations against the once untouchable music mogul.
A U.S. judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Rumor has it that Christian Combs may have played a role in leaking this footage to the media. Whether he did it intentionally or it was part of a larger scheme remains unclear. But the fact that his name is even being mentioned in connection with this scandal is enough to set alarm bells ringing. After all, Christian has largely tried to follow in his father's footsteps in the music world, but if he's not careful, this could tarnish his own rising star before he even has a chance to shine.
Diddy will be sued, and I say will be because nothing has been filed yet, by at least 120 people in the next 30 days. So
Diddy's legal troubles have been mounting for months now, and it seems like every day brings a new lawsuit or allegation. From racketeering to violent confrontations, the charges against him are vast and varied, but perhaps none are more damaging than the claims tied to Cassie and other women who have stepped forward. Cassie's initial lawsuit, while settled, opened the floodgates. Since then, more women have come forward, each with their own stories of disturbing behavior. Some have alleged they were threatened, coerced, or mistreated by Diddy and his associates. As these allegations continue to pile up, it's becoming increasingly difficult for Diddy to maintain the ironclad public image he once had.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
The shocking part is that some of the most damning evidence against Diddy seems to be coming from those closest to him. Gene Deal, for example, hasn't shied away from speaking his mind about his former boss. I was there. I saw things that no one else saw, Deal said in a recent interview. Diddy's empire was built on more than just music. There was always something darker lurking beneath the surface. Deal's words echo the sentiments of many who have worked closely with the music mogul, people who have since distanced themselves from the man who once ruled the hip-hop world with an iron fist.
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution witnesses.
And now, with Christian potentially implicated in leaking damaging footage, Deal's warning takes on a new level of urgency. Christian, for his part, has remained relatively silent about the allegations swirling around his father. But silence, in this case, may not be enough to protect him. In fact, some sources suggest that Christian's involvement could have been unintentional, that he may have been manipulated into releasing the footage by people looking to take down his father. After all, Diddy has no shortage of enemies, both inside and outside the music industry.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies.
But let's take a step back for a moment. To really understand the gravity of the situation, we need to look at the bigger picture. Diddy is facing a slew of charges, both criminal and civil, that could very well overshadow his entire legacy. His arrest in September 2024 on charges of racketeering, among other things, was a turning point. Federal agents swooped in, raiding his properties in Los Angeles and Miami, uncovering a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. From documents to electronic devices, the authorities seem to have built a solid case against the music mogul. And while Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all charges, the sheer volume of allegations against him makes it clear that this is not going to be an easy fight.
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment, as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did...
One of the most damning elements of the case against Diddy is the nature of the allegations themselves. We're not talking about minor infractions here. These are serious charges that could land him behind bars for a very long time if convicted. And what's worse, it's not just one or two accusers. There are over a dozen individuals who have come forward, each with their own stories of mistreatment and abuse. Some of these allegations date back decades, painting a picture of a man who has been operating in the shadows for far too long.
Very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
The parallels between Diddy's situation and other high-profile scandals in the entertainment industry are impossible to ignore. Take Jeffrey Epstein, for example. Both men were powerful figures who used their influence to manipulate those around them. Both men surrounded themselves with a network of enablers who helped them maintain their public images while hiding their alleged wrongdoings. And both men eventually found themselves at the center of legal storms that threatened to unravel everything they had built. While there are certainly differences between the two cases, the similarities are striking enough to make one wonder just how deep Diddy's alleged crimes go. Then there's R. Kelly, another music industry giant whose fall from grace was swift and brutal. Like Diddy, Kelly was once revered as a musical genius, someone who had helped shape the sound of a generation. But beneath that veneer of success was a darker story, one filled with allegations of manipulation, mistreatment, and abuse. Kelly's eventual conviction sent shockwaves through the industry, and it's hard not to wonder if Diddy could be facing a similar fate. After all, the allegations against him are just as serious, if not more so.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions. They don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
But while comparisons to figures like Epstein and Kelly help provide context, Diddy's case is unique in its own way. For one thing, Diddy has always been more than just a musician. He's a businessman, a producer, an entrepreneur. His empire spans everything from music to fashion to liquor brands. And while his music career may have been the foundation, his business ventures have made him a global icon. That's what makes his current predicament all the more shocking. If these allegations are true, then the very empire that Diddy built could come crashing down around him.
Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do.
Christian Combs, meanwhile, finds himself caught in the middle of this mess. On the one hand, he's trying to carve out his own path in the music industry, hoping to step out from under his father's shadow. On the other hand, he's now being dragged into a scandal that threatens to derail his career before it's even really begun. If Christian did indeed play a role in leaking the footage related to Cassie, then he's opened a Pandora's box that could be difficult to close. And if Gene Deal's warning is anything to go by, Christian could be facing more than just legal trouble. There are whispers that some of the people involved in this scandal won't take kindly to having their dirty laundry aired in public.
And that has nothing to do with him having this baby or him having this side girl for almost 15 years.
The tension surrounding the situation is palpable. Diddy, once seen as untouchable, is now facing the fight of his life. And Christian, whether he intended to or not, has stepped into the crosshairs of a storm that threatens to engulf him as well. The leaked footage of Cassie, which many believe Christian had a hand in exposing, has only added fuel to the fire. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, hasn't hesitated to voice his concerns about the potential dangers that Christian might face as a result. Deal's warning isn't just about the legal ramifications. It's about something far more insidious. The very real and dangerous world that surrounds these elite circles.
Man, I just had like a 3.5-hour cry.
Deal, who's never been one to mince words, has painted a grim picture of what might lie ahead for Christian. If I were in his shoes, I'd be watching my back, Deal reportedly said, according to insiders close to the situation. And it's not hard to see why. The entertainment industry, as glamorous as it appears on the surface, hides darker currents beneath. Deals are made, secrets are kept, and when those secrets are kept and when those secrets threaten to be exposed, the consequences can be severe. Christian, who has mostly lived in the shadow of his father's massive success, is now finding himself thrust into the spotlight, and not in the way he probably envisioned.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the shoe have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight.
For Diddy, the timing couldn't be worse. Already neck-deep in a slew of lawsuits, both civil and criminal, the once-celebrated mogul is now watching his empire teeter on the brink of collapse. The scandal surrounding Cassie is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Allegations of misconduct have dogged him for years, but it's only recently that the walls have truly started to close in. The case with Cassie is particularly damning, not just because of the nature of the accusations, but because of the years of silence that followed their relationship's messy end. Cassie's claims, detailed in her lawsuit, have sent shockwaves through the industry, with many wondering just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
Cassie, who was once seen as Diddy's protege, has alleged that their relationship was far from the glamorous fairy tale it appeared to be. Behind closed doors, she claims, things were much darker. And while Diddy has vehemently denied these accusations, the evidence, especially the now infamous footage, paints a different picture. The video, leaked earlier this year, shows a chilling altercation between the two, one that has left many questioning the true nature of their relationship. In the clip, Diddy is seen grabbing Cassie and pulling her to the ground, a moment that, according to sources, was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to their tumultuous time together.
It sounded crazy, like I said before. They said that 2,300 people reached out to the law firm, and out of the 2,300 people, I guess they decided to go with just a little over 100, which seems like it's they just put out the number and everybody's calling to see if they can get a check.
It's insane. It's insane. Now, again, he did say that nothing has been filed yet because he says he wants to make sure that they do their due diligence and get this right.
This footage, which has circulated widely online, has become a focal point in the narrative surrounding Diddy's downfall. And while Christian may not have been the one to leak it directly, the mere suggestion that he was involved has put him in a precarious position. It's one thing for your father to be in trouble, but it's another to be dragged into it yourself, a source close to the family remarked. Christian, who has always seemed to keep a relatively low profile compared to his father, now finds himself at the center of a scandal that could have serious repercussions. And it's not just the legal issues that Christian has to worry about. Deal's warning hints at something far darker, an underbelly of the industry that operates on power, influence, and intimidation. People like Diddy, they don't get to where they are without making enemies, Deal said in a recent interview. And when things start to go wrong, those enemies come out of the woodwork. Whether those enemies are from within the industry or outside of it, the fact remains that Christian could be facing threats that go beyond the courtroom.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for.
Gene Deal's perspective is particularly chilling because he's someone who has been on the inside. As Diddy's former bodyguard, he's witnessed firsthand the inner workings of the mogul's empire. He's seen the deals made behind closed doors, the favors called in, and the power plays that have kept Diddy at the top for so long. And now, as Diddy's world starts to unravel, Deal is sounding the alarm not just for Christian, but for anyone connected to the mogul. Christian's involvement, whether direct or indirect, in the leaking of the footage has only complicated matters. On one hand, there are those who see him as a victim of circumstance, someone who got caught up in a situation far beyond his control. But on the other hand, there are whispers that Christian may have been more involved than he's letting on. Some believe that the footage leak was a calculated move, one designed to distance Christian from his father's sinking ship. It's no secret that their relationship has been strained at times. One insider revealed, and with everything that's happening now, it wouldn't be surprising if Christian wanted to carve out his own path, separate from his father. But if that's the case, Christian's plan may have backfired. Instead of freeing himself from the shadow of his father's legacy, he's found himself even more entangled in it. The legal troubles that Diddy faces are now looming over Christian as well, and the consequences could be dire. This isn't just about one video, Deal explained. This is about a much larger narrative. And if Christian isn't careful, he could find himself in a lot of trouble.
I think it's to be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. I mean, how long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? Or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come?
And speaking of trouble, let's not forget that Christian has his own legal issues to contend with. Earlier this year, he was hit with a lawsuit that alleges he was hit with the laws too, that alleges he was involved in a shocking incident of misconduct. The details of the case are still unfolding, but the accusations are serious enough to raise eyebrows. For someone who has spent much of his life in the public eye, Christian now faces the very real possibility of his own reputation being tarnished, independent of his father's downfall. The parallels between Christian's situation and Diddy's are hard to ignore. Both men, once seen as untouchable in their respective circles, are now facing a reckoning. And while Diddy's troubles may be more high profile, Christian's involvement in these scandals adds another layer of complexity to the story. As the legal battles rage on, the question remains, how much more damage will be done? Diddy's empire, once sprawling and seemingly invincible, is now at risk of crumbling under the weight of these accusations. And Christian, whether he likes it or not, is being pulled down with it. For Diddy, the stakes couldn't be higher. His business empire, which spans music, fashion, and more, is now hanging in the balance. Once the king of the industry, Diddy now faces the very real possibility of losing it all. And while he's managed to survive scandals in the past, this latest round of allegations may be too much to overcome. The accusations against him, particularly those involving Cassie, have struck a nerve in the public consciousness in a way that previous controversies didn't. This time, it feels different. This time, it feels like the end.
And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on watch.
But what about Christian? Will he be able to distance himself from his father's sinking ship, or will he be dragged down with it? That's the question on everyone's mind. Christian, who has always seemed to live in the shadow of his father's success, now has the opportunity to step out on his own. But at what cost? The accusations against him, coupled with his alleged involvement in the leaked footage, have put him in a precarious position. And as Gene Deal has warned, the dangers he faces may go far beyond the legal system.
Defendants, but there's also strategic reasons for the prosecutors to want him to have co-defendants, because right now he hasn't waived his right to a speedy trial, which would force prosecutors to take him to trial pretty quick, which they actually might not be ready to do. But if they supersede him and have co-defendants with him, it makes it a lot easier to pursue a trial continuance without him waiving his speedy trial right.
The entertainment industry is a cutthroat world, one where alliances shift and power dynamics change in the blink of an eye. Diddy, who once held all the cards, is now watching as his empire crumbles around him. And Christian, whether he realizes it or not, is caught in the middle. The question now is, what will he do next? Will he stand by his father, or will he try to carve out a new path for himself? Either way, the road ahead is fraught with danger. As Diddy's legal troubles continue to mount, the focus is slowly shifting to those around him. Christian, once seen as simply the son of a superstar, is now a key player in this unfolding drama. And as more details emerge, it's becoming clear that this is about more than just one man's downfall. This is about an entire legacy, an empire built on power, influence, and secrecy, now unraveling before our very eyes. The industry is watching closely, waiting to see how this all plays out. For years, Diddy was seen as untouchable, a man who could weather any storm. But now, as the allegations pile up and the legal battles intensify, even his most loyal supporters are beginning to wonder, is this the end of the road for one of the biggest names in entertainment? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more revelations, because this story is just heating up.